Oh man, what a day. How do you close a day like this? I mean, you guys have heard from unbelievable people today, right? Jerry Colonna and Nicole Glaros, two of my absolute favorite people in the whole fucking world. How do I follow that? Alex asked me to come talk, and I give a talk called Being a Badass CEO, and it's usually a 2-hour talk. He's like, well, we don't have 2 hours. I'm like, all right, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. So I was trying to figure out how can I add the most value here today. And I knew you guys were gonna hear from incredibly smart people, and they were gonna give you some amazing advice and processes and terms and platforms and things to write down and put into practice. And so I figured this is about being a conscious entrepreneur. And one of the best ways to do that is to understand yourself first. And understand what it is that drives you and what it is that you struggle with. So I thought the best thing I could do here is talk about some of the emotional triggers that I went through as a CEO and how they changed the way I functioned as a human. For a quick background, I've been a CEO 2 times. I've started and sold 3 companies. I've been a mentor forever. I'm now a full-time venture capitalist. I'm also a CEO coach. The key here is I'm fucking old. And I've made all the goddamn mistakes already. And I don't want you to have to make the same mistakes. So I thought talking about some of those mistakes and some of those realizations might be the best way for us to talk today. Now, I've never given this talk before, so I'm going to ask for your help. And the help I'm asking for is feel free to call bullshit. Feel free to ask a question. Feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to say you don't buy it. And I'm happy to have the conversation. And the promise that I give you, that I always give, is that ask me whatever the fuck you want. And I promise I will give you the most transparent answer I possibly can. Because that's not what you hear anywhere else. Except here today, which is fucking awesome. Seriously, like I was having these conversations when no one else was having these conversations, and now everyone's talking about it, and that is so amazing. So thank you. So before I go ahead, I'm going to share a little story. So about a year into my 3rd company, I was taking one of the first vacations I was ever actually allowed to take. I had finally gotten the company to the point where I felt like I could actually take a vacation. And I took a book with me because my plan was, like I told people, I'm not answering email, I'm not answering texts, like I trust my team, leave me the fuck alone, I need some me time. And I was reading a book called Deep Survival by Gonzalez. I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to read it. It's not a business book. I tend to hate business books, mostly because they're all sanitized bullshit. But this book was amazing, and it was amazing because A, he was an amazing writer, but it was real stories about life-threatening situations, who survived them, and who didn't, and why. Told through real interviews and real stories with real people around what happened when their life was in danger. And I started getting very emotional because I realized, and by the way, thankfully Jerry started the crying thing, so I can just, jump the fuck in. But I started to realize that up until that point, so many parts of my life as a CEO felt like life-threatening situations. And how fucked up was that? It's just a business. It wasn't my life. But I could feel my emotion And I could feel everything in my life changing. And I was reading this book. I was like, oh my God, like this is my fucking life. And then I got to this quote. And I realized this quote was the key. To all the people I spoke with, and myself and my own struggles, good survivors aren't immune to fear. They know what's happening, and it does scare the living shit out of them. The question is what you do next. Do you freeze? Do you ignore the fear? Do you pretend you're not scared? Do you live up to the CEO image? I fucking got this. We're killing it. Everything's fucking awesome. Or do you admit to yourself that, holy shit, I'm fucking scared. I don't know what to do. I got 2 weeks worth of payroll. I don't know where my next fucking investment's coming from. I don't know if this client's gonna fire me. My CTO's been embezzling from me. Like, I'm fucking scared. By the way, these are all real stories. Like this, I have literally heard and seen it, not lived through it all. But we are so conditioned to ignore the fact that we're scared and pretend we're not scared because we have to put on an image. And that is so overwhelming and debilitating that I literally had a total breakdown, like for an afternoon. And I had to leave my family and take a walk and realize that this is what I had been struggling with. And that's not okay. Because it's just a fucking business. It's not my life. And as soon as I realized it's okay to be scared, like there's a real reason you're scared, but it's not your life. And the question is, what do you do next? How do you keep moving forward even though you're scared? And that was a key change for me. And I realized, oh fuck, I can do this. Like there's all right, this isn't life and death, it's a business. I'm scared, I'm allowed to be scared, but I still have to keep moving forward. So that was a key change for me. And once I got through that, I started thinking through what were the other real emotional triggers that I was letting stop me from being successful. Like Jerry talked about, how was I complicit in creating the situations I didn't want to exist? What were the things that were stopping me or killing me or making me not be the leader and the CEO I wanted to be? So I pulled together a list, and we're going to go through some of them, and we're going to talk about it. And like I said, feel free to call bullshit, feel free to talk about it, feel free to give me more, and we will talk about it together. So the first one's a big one. As soon as I realized this, everything changed. Everybody talks about, how do you manage work-life balance? How do I create a world where my work and my life are balanced? Who knows what's wrong with that question? There's no such thing as work. There's only life. It's not like I get to live or work. There's life. Work's a subset of your life. It affects your life. If you can't be comfortable with your life, how do you think you're going to do with work? Every business I started when I had kids. And I realized I was missing it. And my wife was angry, and my life sucked. And I was like, wait, I'm trying to figure out the right work-life balance. I'm like, no, that's not the thing. How do I manage my life the way I need to so I can feel like I'm actually living? And that was a huge struggle. And you know what? I started leaving the office at 6 o'clock. I started going home to have dinner with my wife and my kids. And guess what? Nothing fell apart. Nothing fell apart. And none of my investors called and said, what the fuck are you doing going home at 6 o'clock? And my team started realizing, holy shit, if he respects his life, I should do that too. And things got better. Emotional trigger. This is not about work or life. I can virtually guarantee you, everyone here that's running a business, probably not the last business you're going to do. Only life you have. This was a hard one for me. When you're building a business, I wanted everyone to be my friend. I wanted all my employees to love me. I wanted to be their friends. This is a family, right? We succeed and we fail as a family. Bullshit. It's not about being friends. It's about building a business. And when you build a business and you're responsible for that business, people have to change. And sometimes you have to fire people. And sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. And whether or not they like you has nothing to do with how good they are as an employee. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying be an asshole. In fact, that's the last thing you should be. But it's not about making friends. It's about helping people to do the best work they possibly can in an environment where they feel heard, supported, like they can make a difference, and they're happy to be there because they're respected. It's not about friends. And I was brought up in the startup environment. I always heard, oh, what's our culture test? Oh, if I want to have a beer with them, or I want to go, like, do we like hanging out with them? That's the worst fucking culture test I can think of. I don't need more friends. I got enough friends. I want people that are going to help me build a business, that have their own lives, their own needs, their own friends, their own world, but they work with me because they like what they're doing, they feel respected, they feel heard, and they know they're making a difference. And until I could forget it, the need to be liked as a friend, I couldn't create that kind of environment. And that was a huge fucking thing for me, this need to be liked, to be a friend. I'm not saying you don't be friendly. You should always be friendly. You should be awesome. You should be supportive. You should be a great fucking person. But you don't have to be everybody's best friend. And you don't need everybody to be yours. I get this question a lot, and this was so hard. I'd start a business and I would sit there and I was like, when the fuck does it get easier? Because this is so hard. And I give a talk, I mentioned before, called Being a Badass CEO, and a lot of the early entrepreneurs would sit there and they look at me with big sad eyes. And they said, David, when does it get easier? And I have to look at them and say, it never gets easier, only faster. That's the job. You want to be a CEO? You want to build a business? Embrace the suck. Because that's what you're signing up for. And that's the exciting part. And that's the challenge. It's not about getting easier. You want bigger problems, because that means your company's growing. What you want is a way to get better at dealing with today's problems so you're more equipped to deal with the bigger ones you're going to have tomorrow. Right? Promise was awesome talking about her daughter, which sounds fucking amazing, by the way. I have 2 kids. I love stories like that. But this is awesome. Very similar to a conversation that parents of new kids have. Right? Like when you're a parent, if you have new kids, you guys can relate. Like it seems overwhelming. They're all the fuck over the place. Logistics, do they have the right bag, do they have the right diapers, the right food? Like, holy shit, I'm overwhelmed. And you think, when does it get easier? When does it get easier? Guess what? Bigger kids, bigger fucking problems. Same thing with a business. So the trick right now, when it's small, is to just get better every day at dealing with today's problems. So you're prepared for tomorrow's. And this was like, I kept waiting for it to get easier until someone smacked me down and said, dude, it's not getting easier. That's when I realized, oh fuck, that's right. Like, this is the job. You think CEO's easy? No. Embrace the suck. Welcome it. Challenge it. Because that's how you get better at what you're doing. This was a big one. Real big realization for me. And there's a lot in this one. As the CEO, every single thing you say and do matters. I'm going to say that again for the kids in the back. As the CEO, every single thing you say and you do matters. How you walk into a room, when you walk into a room, who you listen to, who you don't listen to, how you speak, who you empower, who you shut down. Every word that comes out of your mouth matters and affects everybody in your business. That's super fucking heavy. You don't get to be casual as a CEO. You don't get to just say whatever the fuck you want and act how you want. Like, this shit is not easy. And it wasn't until I realized that I literally had to think about every single thing I said and did that this stuff started to really click. And here's the even tougher part. As a CEO, I was always told I was in charge, I had to control everything. Everything was in my, like, sales are in my control. Everything was, like, I had to control everything about the business. Buck stops with me. I'm in control. And I eventually realized there's only a single thing I can control about my business. One fucking thing. I can't control sales, I can't control hiring, I can't control development, I can't control customers. There's literally nothing about my business I can control except the culture. The only thing about my business that I could actually control was the culture. The way I talked, the way I enabled people, the way I supported them, the way I created a level of respect, the way I created an environment in which every one of my employees felt like they were respected, they wanted to earn the respect of everybody else, they were supported, they were being heard, and they made a difference. I could control all that. So why not optimize that for success? Especially when in a lot of companies, it's the last thing they worry about. They write some shit down on the wall. Here's our culture, like here's our values, you read it, great. We did it, we did the work, it's up there. And then they act contradictory to that all the time. And then they wonder why people leave, or they don't want to work late, or they don't like being there, they take an offer for a bigger salary. Once I realized that I was in control of my culture, and I could create an environment where people wanted to come to work, not because I paid them more than anyone else, because I could never afford to pay them more than everyone else, but because they actually fucking liked being there, and they would work harder when they knew the business needed them to, not because I told them they had to. What a fucking weapon that is. You are the culture. Your words, your actions, who you speak to, who you support matter. Use it to help. When I was, the first few times I was an entrepreneur and a CEO, I used to create my personal value based on how much shit I got done and how much shit I got other people to do. How much I was crossing off my list and how big everybody else's list was and how I would tell them what to do with their list. And I loved when they came to me and said, what do I need to do next? And I'd say, you need to do this, this, and this. I felt valuable because they needed me. And that's how I created self-worth. So fucking wrong. Took me way too long to figure this out. It's not about managing. It's about leading. It's about giving people a destination and supporting them to get there. It's about showing them a vision, right? We talked a little before about the need to believe and how it's critical as a leader to believe. People need you to believe because they need someplace to go. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be shown where they need to get and given the tools they need to get them there. This whole difference between managing and leading, super difficult, super tricky. And I know, like, when you're early, you got to do all this shit. I get it. Totally get it. But your brain has to be in, I need to lead people, not manage them. If I'm managing people, I am not doing my job as a CEO. People tell me they're good managers. I'm like, you're fucking worthless. I don't need a manager. I need people that when I show them where we want to go, they come to me and say, here's how we're going to fucking get there. I was like, great, what do you need? But it's my job to tell them where we need to go. And it's my job to support them in that journey and make sure they have what they need and make sure it's clear and make sure they understand the world we're trying to create. And if I spend too much time managing, no one in my company gets that. And no one really understood the long vision. Big mental transition. This is also a really difficult part for companies that are like, you talk about you're raising your A, you're just growing the company, right? And all of a sudden you're hiring a senior leadership team. You best not be managing people like that. If you're hiring a senior leadership team and you have to manage them, they're the wrong people. If they're the right people, you're managing them, they're going to leave. This was really hard for me to get because no one fucking told me. No one ever told me this. I had to figure it out. This was such an unbelievable trigger and understanding for me. And I'm going to pick on Sonia a little, because Sonia was talking to Jerry before. She's talking about, I'm doing the work, but when do I get there? Right? Is that what you said? Every day you're there. Every fucking day you're doing a little better. And that's what matters. We are taught as early CEOs or entrepreneurs that we need to be like that. We need to be like a different person. Like, we need to be a great CEO, and this is what they look like, and this is how they function. And I'll tell you a story. I spent the day one time sitting next to a guy named Brad Feld, who many of you probably know, who's an investor of mine, a friend of mine. I spent the day sitting next to him at a conference one day, and I was the CEO of a company. And I sat next to Brad for the day at a conference. And I watched him over the course of the 6 hours or wherever we were there answer in real time with real thought 300-400 emails, write 2 blog posts, get up, give a talk, and review 3 pitch decks, and know exactly what was going on with the speakers. And I went home after the conference and I told my wife, I have to quit. I can't do this. I can't ever fucking be like that. I can't do it. That's what I'm supposed to be. That's what a CEO is supposed to be. I can't fucking do that. We're all taught we're supposed to be a certain way. I want to be like Elon. I want to be like Steve. Just give me the fucking book I have to read so I can be like that. That's not the goal. This is not about a switch. This is not about a binary thing where you're going to read something or learn something and all of a sudden you're going to be better and different. This is about every fucking day trying to be a little better than you were yesterday. Every day. And some days you fuck up and you go back a little. And that's okay. But there's no switch. There's no book. There's no just do this and you will be the way you think everyone needs you to be. We are all ourselves. We're humans. We're fucked up. We're flawed. We have mistakes. We're not perfect. Our job every day is to try and be a little better than we were yesterday. And when you don't feel like you're getting better and you're doing the work, think back 6 months ago. I talk about this with my coaching clients all the time. They're like, why am I still fucking struggling with this? It's like, hold on. What were we talking about 6 months ago? Or 3 months ago? They're like, oh, fuck, you're right. Like, yeah. A little better every fucking day. And that shit builds. And it builds, and it keeps building. And here's the problem, it never stops. There's no there. You don't ever stop. You heard Jerry talk today. He still works on himself every fucking day. I know this for a fact. There's no there. It's the journey. The things that you say and do every single day matter. And when you fuck up, just say, fuck, I fucked up. Ask for an apology, ask for forgiveness, give an apology, say, fuck, but then remember why you fucked up. And don't do it again. And I guarantee you, if you focus on just a little fucking baby steps, I'm not even talking about leaps. Did I communicate a little better today than I did yesterday? Did I not let my CTO piss me the fuck off in a meeting today and react stupidly like I did yesterday? Just be better every day. Remember we talked about this just life, right? This is a long game. We are so conditioned to think about short-term return, short-term outcome. I'm the CEO, I am this company, everything I do matters, everything I do in this company matters, and I've got to have an outcome and an exit, and it's got to be fucking awesome. Hey, maybe it will be. But maybe it won't. I know this. right? I got up here, I said, I've started and sold 3 different companies, right? Fucking awesome. That doesn't mean they sold well. It doesn't mean it was easy. Some of them were fucking shit shows. And after the first company I actually founded, we raised a shitload of money. A shitload of money. And we sold the company for a lot less money than we raised. And a lot of good people lost a lot of money in that deal. And that was the company I moved to Boulder. So I'm from New York originally. I moved that company to Boulder. And we sold the company. It was not pretty at all. And I went home, and I thought, fuck, I have to leave Boulder. I can't. I fucked up. I screwed it up. I failed. I fucking failed. I'm worthless. And I was in a pretty fucking deep depression. And a week later, one of my biggest investors from that company called. He said, all right, what's next? Like, what do you mean? What are we going to do next? I said, what do you mean? Like, I failed. I lost your money. He's like, dude, I lose my money all the fucking time. But you did the right thing. You treated people the right way. You did everything you could. You were honest. You were straight. You did the best you fucking could. And I will back you again. We are so tempted when we're overwhelmed and stressed and have our entire life, self-worth, and personality in our businesses to make short-term decisions sometimes. Until you can remember this is about the long game. And what really matters is how you conduct yourself every day and how you treat your employees and how you treat your investors and how you treat your customers and how you treat your family and how you treat yourself. That's when you really start to get it. It's not about that business. It's about every fucking day and what you do and how you live and being a good person and finding ways to help you make the right decisions, even when it's so easy to make the wrong one. And it is so fucking easy to make the wrong decision sometimes. So focus on the long game. Build a support system. Find people you can speak with, people that care. Not always investors, but people that care about you, have been there, have been through the struggles, are willing to take a call from you at 2 a.m. on a Thursday when you don't know how you're going to make payroll on Friday. Because you need that support system to help you, because this is about the long game. Because every now and then, it's overwhelming. Tremendously overwhelming. And sometimes you're sitting in your bed in the morning, and your alarm's going off, and you've hit snooze 4 times, because the last thing you want to do is get out of that bed. All you want is for that bed to open up and swallow you whole, because you don't want to face the shit you have to deal with. And what you need is a mindset and a support system. So when you're sitting there in that bed and you're overwhelmed and you don't want to deal with everything you need to deal with that day, and you're scared shitless, you can sit there and you can look up and you can say to yourself, I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'm a fucking animal, and I will eat you if I have to. And you fucking get out of bed, and you go build a business. So that's all I got, but I'm totally open to questions.
Thank you.